Hello everyone! I'll finally show you one game from the Gashimov Memorial tournament played in Russia, because during the first 3 rounds we've had all draws without a single decisive results, and that every day I would start looking at the rounds and thinking, okay, now today's the day, we are going to have some exciting games, but unfortunately most of the games have been boring draws, only a few fighting draws in the first 3 rounds. And this game, played between Topalov and Mamedyarov, was the first decisive result of the tournament, and it came in round 4. And of course Mamedyarov is the world's number 2, so he was a slight favorite despite playing with the black pieces, and Topalov opened with pawn to e4. We have e5, knight to f3, knight c6, bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez or the Spanish game, and they go for the main variation with a6, bishop a4, knight to f6 castles, and from here on, the normal continuation entering the Ruy Lopez would be bishop to, the closed Ruy Lopez would be bishop to e7, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, d6, c3, castles, h3, and from here on, black would either go for the Chigorin with knight to a5, the Breyer with knight to b8, the Karpov, the floor or something else, or he could enter the Marshall before this without d6 playing castles and then d5. But after Topalov castled on move 5, Mamedyarov went for a very rarely played variation of the Ruy Lopez, and that's the open Ruy Lopez with knight takes e4, and not that it's worse for black or anything, but it's just considered slightly less precise than the closed lines, but it's okay. And they go for the main variation here. Topalov plays d4. This is by far the most commonly played move with more than 10,000 Grandmaster games. If you are wondering whether white can immediately regain the pawn by playing bishop takes c6 and then taking on e5, he can, but it would result in a slightly passive position in which he would have a problem on the g4 square with the bishop pinning here. I wouldn't want to go into those lines too deeply, so just remember to play d4. And here Mamedyarov plays b5, the main move, bishop to b3, d5, d takes e5, bishop e6, and now bishop to e3. This is the first deviation from the main line played by Topalov. The normal continuation here is knight b to d2, knight to c5 attacking the bishop, c3, not taking the bishop here. That's not the same as in the closed Ruy Lopez. You don't want to capture this bishop now. You play bishop to e7, bishop c2, bishop g4, and rook to e1. This is the normal most commonly played line of the open Ruy Lopez. However, after bishop to e6, Topalov went for bishop to e3, developing his bishop and securing the d4 square before developing the knight to d2. Now bishop to e7, c3, securing d4 even more, castles, knight b to d2, knight takes, queen takes, and now knight to a5 attacking the bishop. And from this position on, you don't want to save your bishop, actually. You would like to exchange it because it's not as active on the b3 diagonal, and if it comes to c2, it will be attacking the h2 pawn, but the h7 pawn, but it's worse than the knight on a5, actually. So the most common move in this position is knight to d4, attacking black's bishop in exchange, and black would play queen to d7, defending to make sure he doesn't have to recapture with the pawn. So this is the continuation. However, Topalov went for bishop to c2. This has also been played a couple hundred times. It's not bad, but it's just not the most common line. The problem is the c4 square that the knight now has, and it immediately jumps into c4. Now knight to c4, queen to d3, and Mamedyarov doesn't capture the bishop. He plays g6, and now from this position on, this has been played in a lot of Grandmaster games, maybe 20. You can see that the b pawn is loose, and of course, he couldn't have taken it before because queen h7 was checkmate. So now white has to do something. He has to either defend with the most common move, which is bishop to c1, that's saving the bishop and defending b2 at the same time, or play bishop to h6, which is slightly uncommon and actually gives black the advantage, because you don't want to lose your pawn for nothing. And that's exactly what Topalov plays. He plays bishop to h6, and of course Mamedyarov takes knight b2. And now after queen to e2, saving the queen, rook to e8. And the point of this line, the point of white sacrificing the pawn, is that he can actually regain it. And the way to regain the pawn is bishop takes g6, uncovering an attack on the knight. And after h takes, simply queen takes b2, you recovered your material, you have a slightly worse pawn structure, and that's why it's better to play bishop to c1 in the first place. However, after you sacrifice your b2 pawn, then this is the best line you could go for. But after rook to e8, Topalov played knight to d4, and now he is slightly worse. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog, he seems to be sad at the moment for some reason, I don't know why. Now bishop to d7, f4, c5, and from this position on, black already has a significant edge, because he has a much stronger central pawn structure. White's threat of f5 isn't as strong, and the knight is getting dislodged to a very inferior square. So now knight to f3, queen to b6, and you can see that even this diagonal is weak now towards the black king. The knight isn't at all misplaced, because after it comes to to c4, it will be very well placed. Now queen to f2, preparing for the c4 move, d4, advancing in the center. Now bishop to g5. This is another inaccuracy by white, but still the bishop was useless on h6. d takes c3, queen to h4. Of course, this is now a pawn sacrifice by Topalov, actually 2 pawns sacrificed by now because of the b2 pawn. And the position is now already very unsound, and it's questionable and arguable whether he can hold this position. Of course, he has some attacking prospects because of the f4 and the e5 pawns, but I still think it isn't enough, and the engine agrees. You can see the evaluation on the right side of the board, but if you concentrate on the human aspect of the game, then white stands a good chance. Now c4 check, king to h1, bishop to f8, defending the king because white was now threatening a lot of dangerous stuff on g7. f5, advancing, and now the position is even worse, but actually I like white now. I would like to play with the white pieces, because if black ever captures, then I think your position is great. He played knight to d3, and we have e6 now, advancing, and now from this position on, of course, you have to sacrifice a piece, and you will have a lot of pawns for your piece, and that's materially better, of course. So Mamedyarov took with the bishop, he played bishop takes e6. Let me just show you what would have happened if he didn't take. Let's say he tried to save his bishop with bishop to c6. Then the position is just busted. E takes f7, king f7, queen h7, bishop to g7, and now you can continue with several moves. The best one perhaps is f takes g6, and after king to e6 you can either take the bishop, you can sacrifice one exchange this way, and after king to d6, rook to d1, you now have a much stronger attack. Now once again you can take the bishop, or you can increase the pressure after bishop to d5, but let's say you take, and now rook a to d8, giving up the exchange, and now in this position you can see that white is completely winning, the bishop is falling, and this will be checkmate in a few moves. So after e6, Mamedyarov calculated correctly that he has to take. What's important though is that after he takes, white is still much worse. So bishop e6, f e6, rook e6, you can see now that black has 7 pawns, white has 3, so black now actually has 4 pawns for the piece, which is a lot. And that's completely irrelevant to the fact that the pawns on the queen side are so mobile and getting so dangerous that white's position is actually almost busted. And you can imagine a5, b4, let's say b3, a takes, c takes, and those pawns will be unstoppable. However, from this position on, Topalov seemed to have played a perfect game, and he actually managed to equalize comfortably. Now rook a to d1, rook a to e8, bishop takes d3, c takes d3, rook takes d3, getting 1 pawn, so now 3 pawns for the piece. Rook e4, bishop to f4, bishop to e7, attacking the queen, queen to g3, and now b4. And those pawns are looking dangerous now, you can see that. However, some of the pressure has been relieved with white regaining 1 pawn. Now knight to g5, bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, queen to e6, and now this is where Mamedyarov went wrong. He actually initiated a queen trade on a few occasions, and that was a mistake because he needs all the pressure he has in the position. Of course, now the a2 pawn is falling, but that doesn't really matter that much. Topalov plays h3, and now queen to e5, offering a queen trade. At least I think he should have taken the a2 pawn. I don't understand why he didn't. The best move was to play a5, simply advancing his pawns. But after queen to e5 and king to h2, Mamedyarov actually exchanges the queens, and now white is better than black, because black simply doesn't have enough resources to win his pawns. The bishop on g5 is so strong in stopping the pawns from coming to c1 that it's actually becoming impossible for black to queen. And now actually Mamedyarov missed his chance. He in this position plays a move I don't understand at all, and I was completely confused when watching the game. I just couldn't see the purpose of this. He played h6, and if you ask the engines, they actually don't think it's that bad. Maybe it's because black doesn't have any more good moves, but I doubt it. I would have tried a5. Now Topalov simply takes bishop h6, and now rook to e1, and I don't see why rook to e1 couldn't have been played with the bishop on g5. I don't see the difference. Now rook to f6, rook 1 to e6, initiating a trade, but if they trade pieces, then black is completely lost. This is now already much better for white, and perhaps he was trying to queen, and he thought it would be easier to queen with one pair of rooks off. Now rook to f2, rook to e2, rook to d5, and now when the king can take, Mamedyarov took and Topalov was content with the exchange. Now rook f2, king f2, f6, and he was of course now threatening g5, trapping the bishop, and that would queen the pawn. So Mamedyarov was threatening to win the game, but Topalov of course saw it. He played bishop to e3, and Mamedyarov actually resigned in this position. And I have to say I was very excited to look at this game, to watch this game, because after all the draws, this was one game which compensated a lot for the boring play so far in the first 3 rounds. And Topalov went for a normal opening. Mamedyarov decided to deviate with the open Ruy Lopez, and then Topalov didn't go for the main line. He actually went for a slightly uncommon variation in which he ended up sacrificing a pawn which he must have known isn't supposed to be sacrificed, or at least he could have recaptured on g6 with bishop g6. So I'm very happy with the game, and in the position in which the situation was very double-edged, materially better for black of course, but tactically better for white, Topalov surprised Mamedyarov and managed to win. And I love this game. I hope we will see a lot of games like this in round 5, which has been played at the moment. So let's hope we get more decisive results finally. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something from this game and that you learned the basics of the Open Ruy Lopez, at least if you didn't know them, or if you did, that you improved your knowledge. And thanks very much. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye.